The janitor who died a multi-millionaire. The remarkable true story of Ronald James Read. Every generation has a handful of stories so extraordinary that they almost sound fictional. A poor farm boy who becomes a millionaire. A homeless veteran who becomes a successful entrepreneur. Yet among all of America's wealth-building stories, perhaps none is more remarkable than the life of Ronald James Read. He never became a doctor. He never became a lawyer. He never earned an MBA. He never managed a Fortune 500 company. He never rang the opening bell on Wall Street. He never appeared on Forbes' list of the richest Americans. Most people never knew his name while he was alive. For nearly his entire adult life, Ronald Read worked jobs that millions of Americans perform every single day. He pumped gasoline. He repaired automobiles. Later, he swept floors, emptied trash cans, polished windows, and cleaned restrooms as a part-time janitor. To everyone around him, Ronald appeared to be exactly what he was, a hard-working, humble man who earned an ordinary paycheck. Nothing more, or so everyone believed. Then came June 2014. Ronald James Read died quietly in Brattleboro, Vermont, at the age of 92. His funeral attracted little national attention. There were no television cameras, no celebrities, no financial analysts, no crowds of reporters, just friends, neighbors, and members of a small Vermont community saying goodbye to a man they believed had lived a simple life. Then his estate was opened. Lawyers began examining his financial records, investment accounts, stock certificates, dividend statements. What they discovered stunned everyone. The quiet janitor, the retired gas station attendant, the man who drove old cars, the man who wore inexpensive flannel shirts, the man who clipped grocery coupons, had quietly accumulated nearly $8 million. Almost overnight, Ronald James Read became one of the most talked about investors in America. Financial magazines analyzed his portfolio. Television programs discussed his investing habits. Economists pointed to his life as proof that ordinary people could build extraordinary wealth. His story spread across newspapers around the world. It was how he had done it. There was no secret formula, no cryptocurrency, no day trading, no lottery ticket, no inheritance, no lucky break, no Silicon Valley startup, no best-selling book, no professional investment career, just decades of discipline, quiet discipline. The kind that nobody notices until it has completely transformed a person's life. To understand Ronald James Read's extraordinary journey, we must travel back nearly 100 years to a very different America. Ronald James Read was born on October 23, 1921, in the tiny farming community of Dummerston, Vermont. Today, Dummerston remains a peaceful New England town known for rolling hills, forests, covered bridges, dairy farms, and quiet country roads. In 1921, it was even smaller. Life moved at a slower pace. Families depended upon agriculture. Neighbors knew one another by name. Children were expected to contribute to household work almost as soon as they were old enough to carry a bucket or swing an axe. Electricity had not yet reached every rural home. Automobiles were becoming more common, but horses still played an important role on many farms. Indoor plumbing was not universal. Modern conveniences that people now consider ordinary simply did not exist for many rural families. Ronald entered this world during a period of dramatic change. Only 3 years earlier, World War I had ended. The United States was experiencing rapid industrial growth. Cities were expanding. Factories were producing automobiles in record numbers. Yet life in rural Vermont remained largely unchanged. Hard work still determined whether a family succeeded. Ronald's parents were poor farmers. Their wealth did not come from bank accounts. It came from livestock, fields, harvests, firewood, tools. Every season demanded different labor. Spring meant planting. Summer meant tending crops. Autumn meant harvesting. Winter meant surviving. Children worked alongside adults because every pair of hands mattered. Ronald learned responsibility long before he understood money. He learned that food did not appear magically on a table. Someone had to plant it, water it, Harvest it, preserve it, prepare it. Those lessons quietly shaped the habits that would define the rest of his life. Waste was unacceptable. If a fence broke, you repaired it. If boots wore out, you patched them. If clothing tore, you sewed it. Nothing useful was thrown away simply because something newer existed. Decades later, neighbors would remember Ronald living exactly the same way. Not because he was poor, but because those habits had become part of who he was. Then came one of the greatest economic disasters in American history. In October 1929, when Ronald was only 8 years old, the United States stock market collapsed. Within months, businesses failed. Banks closed. Millions of Americans lost their jobs. Families that had once considered themselves financially secure suddenly found themselves struggling to survive. The Great Depression had begun. For wealthy Americans, the Depression represented financial loss. For poor farming families like Ronald's, it reinforced lessons they already understood. Every dollar mattered. Debt could become dangerous. Financial security could disappear almost overnight. Many historians believe childhood experiences during the Great Depression permanently shaped the financial habits of an entire generation. People who lived through those years often became lifelong savers. They avoided unnecessary debt. They valued stability over excitement. They prepared for difficult times because they had already lived through them. Ronald James Read would become one of the greatest examples of that generation's financial mindset. As he grew older, education became increasingly important. Attending Brattleboro High School required determination. Every day, Ronald walked or hitchhiked approximately 4 miles each way. Then, snow, cold, heat, it didn't matter. He went anyway. There were easier reasons to quit. Many young people from farming families left school early to help support their households. Education often appeared less practical than immediate work. But Ronald continued, eventually becoming the first member of his family to graduate from high school. It was a quiet achievement. There were no newspaper headlines, no scholarships, no national recognition. Yet it represented something larger. Discipline. Persistence. The willingness to continue doing difficult things long after excitement had disappeared. Those same qualities would later make him one of America's most extraordinary investors. Few people recognized it at the time,